So in this short video I will be addressing section 4.2 in the marine science book about crustaceans and their anatomy and their function in the ecosystem and their impact on human economy. So today we're going to be talking about aquatic crustaceans, and aquatic crustaceans are part of the arthropods, and arthropods are without doubt the most successful group of animals in the animal kingdom. Almost 75% of all identified animal species, many of them being insects, beetles and so on, is part of this phylum. So they are really the kings and queens of evolution. We find them from the bottom of the sea to like flying in our sky. So they are incredibly successful. And arthropods do have exoskeleton, which means that they have the skeleton on the outside. The hard shells or plates are on the outside, and often in marine versions they are also strengthened with calcium, while the muscles who move their legs, their joints, are on the inside of the skeleton. The advantage to this is it's very good for defense, being covered in plate armor. The disadvantage is that sometimes you have to do molting because the skeleton is not alive, it does not grow. So when the animal, for example a lobster, is growing, it needs to shed its hard shell and grow a new one. And when you shed your hard shell, something called molting, you are of course more vulnerable to attack. Beside the crustaceans I will talk about in this short video, there are also other parts that is not included in this AS marine syllabus. Most animals like the horseshoe crabs, which by the way is super awesome, and the sea spiders. So they will not be included, but if you're interested, I really suggest you do look them up yourself. So, time to get into the anatomy of a common shrimp. So here we have my rather rough drawing of a common shrimp. If you're using the marine science book, you can also find this on page 111. If you ever tried eating shrimps, you know they have a hard skeleton that you have to break open if you buy them whole. And we see this also on this drawing, that the animal is covered by the exoskeleton. On a shrimp like this, we separate the body into two parts: the cephalothorax, which is like the head and upper body, and the abdomen, which is the lower part of it. On the cephalothorax we have two pairs of antennas, some long antennas and some short antennas. There are also compound eyes, and we have the mouth, which is used for feeding. The antenna is used for sensing and to get an awareness of the environment, both to find food and to avoid predation. Crustaceans, like all arthropods, have joint legs, which means they can bend their legs. And we see they have both the walking legs, and behind them they have swimmer legs. The abdomen is split into different parts, and on each segment you have a pair of legs. On males, the first pair might be enlarged and be used to pass sperm to the eggs on the female. And on the last joint we do find that we end in a fan-shaped tail. That's called the uropod and the telson, which is also used for moving. Some lobsters, for example, have sense organs on their legs and on the tail that can be used for tasting and sensing the environment. So this is just a generalized drawing, but if you would look at a lobster, for example, you will find many of the same features. On the lobster, of course, you'll also find the claws, which we don't find on a shrimp like this. Now, the ecological impact of crustaceans is huge. Crustaceans are, many animals are very important scavengers. If you've ever been to a harbor, you'll see the common crabs. Any dead thing you throw down there will be quickly devoured by them. So they are important as scavengers for keeping, recycling nutrients into the food chain. They are also quite important as grazers. You see many help like maintain seagrass meadows by grazing the algae that will grow on the plants, and they are a hugely important part of many food chains. Shrimps, animals like that are important food sources for marine birds. They are important food sources for the larger vertebrates, and especially in the open ocean, the huge flocks of krill uh, are very, very huge and important part of the food chain. And krills have the ability to grow quickly. So if we have a lot of phyto and zooplankton, you can quickly grow large amounts of krill who will feed on it, and they then are important food source for big animals such as the whales. So because there are so many different crustaceans and they live so many different places in the ocean, they are a hugely and very important part of all our food webs in the ocean. When we talk about the economic impact of crustaceans, we mainly talk about fishing. Fishing for shrimp, for example, in the northern Atlantic has a huge impact on the local economy, and seafood like shrimps are consumed many places in the world. Uh, Bigger crustaceans such as lobsters and crabs are considered a delicacy in many places and are sold for good prices. So as a food source and as a fishing, as an income for local communities, it's quite important. Krill is sometimes fished and is used either as food or as a basis for making omega-3 fish oil products, where krill oil is considered to be very good and pure. The problem is, of course, if you overfish the krill, it will have a huge impact on the food chain who is depending on them. So there's a big debate there about how sustainable it is to fish for krill. So the main impact we see is here as a food source, as a positive impact. As a negative impact, we do see that fish lice, which can infect aquaculture, especially when you're farming salmon, stuff like that. It can have a negative impact as they will go in and lower the fitness of your fish in the aquaculture. So in that way, crustaceans can also be a negative impact on the economy.